get the solar panels placed today. I think I have the configuration I'd like. I could have done 3 horizontal like this. It would have taken up a little less room. However, if I orientate these 2 like this, I actually have to put 4 less holes in the roof because I'll overlap these brackets here in the middle. So I'll have to drill 4 less holes in the roof, and less holes in the roof is always better. So I think I'm going just to roll with this layout. It's still fairly low profile, and it does also offer a little bit in the sense that I get a little bit different angles on these 2. So if the sun, is on one side or the other, I'll get a little bit better angle on that. And since the roof is curved anyways, I think to get the most angles I possibly can is going to be the best way. But honestly, it all came down to just having to drill less holes in the roof and it taking up about the same amount of space and being just about as low profile. So now it's just a matter of putting the hole in the roof for all the wiring to go through. Okay, so I got 3 of the Renogy RNG 100D SS's, just 100 watt panels. There's kind of the stats there. List the price point and everything. They're actually fairly reasonable and have really good reviews. Renogy seems to be one of the favorites amongst the industry. And these are like the slimmer versions. So that's what I figured out could fit the best orientation on the top of the van and take up the least amount of space with the most energy I could get out of them. I do want to run a quick test on all of them to make sure they all work before I actually put them up there, so let's do that next. Okay, I got this one in the sun. The probe's on the inside here. And 22.3 volts, it's pretty good. It's about where it's supposed to be. And then to see how many amps I'm getting so I can see how much wattage this is producing. So I'm getting about 5.25. So you'll multiply that by the volts and you'll get your wattage. And it's actually pretty good. I think I'm getting 5.25 times 21.7. So I'm actually getting about 115 watts right now out of this 100 watt panel, so I'm really happy with that. Okay, so here's the cable entry gland. Basically what this does is it gives you a clean transition from the wiring on your solar into the vehicle. You want this to be completely waterproof, and you want it to face forward with the slope facing forward so any rain can kind of come up and over the actual entry gland. The back pieces will accept the wire that I have, and when you tighten these, it tightens that foam down in on the wire to make a waterproof connection. And I just got this off of Amazon. A Restmo, and this will accept, I think, several different cable sizes. Mine comes down to a 10 gauge. Entry cable. So it's 10 feet, 10 gauge. It has the MC4 connectors on one end, the bare wire on the other to run through that entry gland. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use this actual line as a reference point on the inside. So as you can see, it's that ridge right there, and I don't want to drill any further back than this. I want it to fall right in this area so that cable can run along this line as well, and stay under the roofing material. So from that front edge to the end of that dip is about 13.5 inches. So I don't want to have that entry point going any further than that 13 inches. I'll most likely have it about 2.5 inches off of this to allow for the turn of the cable, since it is a bit thicker. Might even do about 3 inches, about right there. So there we go. It's about 13.5 inches. So that's going to be where that cross member comes across. I do not want to be on that. So I'm going to pretty much center that where the hole will be, about 3 inches. And then I'm going to pull this in a little bit off this dip too, again for the proper wire clearance. So it'll look something like that. Easiest way you're going to get the size hole you need for this entry gland is going to be using a step bit. And I also have a kit of grommets, different grommet sizes. So I decided I'm going to use this 5/8 by 1 inch. So I'll just slowly step that hole down to the size that this is, and then I can drop this in place with some silicone. And of course I made sure that both of these wires would fit through there just fine. It's a pretty nice fit. It's the closest one I could get in this kit. And then using a marker, I just marked off where the highest ridge point was. That's where I want the wires to kind of come down in. Then we'll take half of 3 5/8. That's what it looks like. 3 5/8, yep. So 1 13/16 right there. All right. Put another hole in the roof. Decent amount yet to go. Okay, now it's getting close. I think that's right there. Yep. Beautiful. Okay, so now what I want to do though is kind of clean this area around it, and then lay just a tiny bead of silicone in there to hold this into place. But that's a perfect fit right there. Next thing I did was clean the area up with some degreaser, and then I traced around the entry gland with a dry erase marker. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently rough up the inside of this, because I'll be using this liquid nails to use it again. It's been really good so far for a lot of different things. And then I'll go over that with a lap sealant on the outside edge. I am going around with this, it's almost like a Brillo pad, and just kind of roughing up around the edges on the inside of where I put that dry erase marker. And the reason for that being is I just want to rough up the smooth surface a little bit for the liquid nails to grab onto. and this should provide a good surface to really pull that edge in. So I'm just gonna I don't want to take it all the way down to metal, I just want to get that paint roughed up a little bit. And then spray that back off, make sure you got all the grit and stuff out of there from where you roughed it up. And you can vaguely see a little bit darker area here, but I can still see my edge marks that I line those up. And then we'll get this bead laid on the inside here. Okay, I'm just gonna put this liquid nails on the inside edge here. I'm gonna get that placed down. Now we'll need to install these Z brackets onto the actual solar panels. Here's a picture of the Z brackets I just got off of Amazon. They are Renogy as well, so they do fit these specific applications. So the diagrams that they actually provide shows the lock nut being on the bottom by the bolt. However, I would put these actually up underneath the nut that you're tightening, which is the proper way to do this. I don't know why they have it on their website as that. They also have a video that contradicts that with a completely different way. So just so you're aware, this diagram just shows how they recommend to do it, but I would put that lock washer on the top beneath the nut as you're tightening it down. And then before you're tightening everything down, you'll just kind of want to measure from the inside part of the bracket to the outside frame of the panel. So that's 2 1/4 inch. So before I tighten everything down all around the other sides, I'll make sure I measure from that edge to make sure it's 2 1/4, just to keep everything even and square. And the way this one falls is that this is going to be the crosswise top one, so the brackets are going to go on top. The other ones that are going to go together, the brackets are actually going to be on the sides, because those both have to meet up in the middle. So again, these ones I want to make sure are square again to the edge, so I want to make sure they're even across the way so everything matches up when I'm putting them together. This one will do 6 3/4. And again, just making sure the tabs are snugged up against. And then just get that snugged up, and then you'll do that on the other side, 6 3/4 inch from the inside frame of the bracket to the outside frame of the panel. Again, same thing for the second panel that will lie with the vertical orientation on the back side of the van. You want these to match up with the other panel's brackets, like I said before, to match up those middle 2 holes and keep everything level. Okay, so I got the extension cables coming through the cable entry gland. One thing I would recommend that I did not do was fish those through this thing before you actually glue it onto the top of the van. It's kind of a pain in the ass to fish those through the small opening on the bottom. So I do have those coming through now. I have to reinstall the rubber grommet up there just to make sure that's secure, but pulling those through ripped that thing out, so I want to put something a little bit better as far as adhesive up there. But that will be my extension cables running down behind here to my charge controller. So that's all set up now, just to bring the panels up, measure everything out, get everything set up evenly up here. So the first thing I did when I was up here was just clean all the grime and stuff off, because I'm going to have to lay down butyl tape and put down lap sealant once I get the screws put in place. So you want to make sure that's all wiped down good. Again, just use that degreaser spray and wipe that all down. So now I'm just going through and measuring on center, but keep in mind from the front and middle of the van to the back, it contours inwards, so you'll want to measure from each spot to make sure you know where center is. And I just use a little dry erase marker to mark that center, and I'll be able to draw a line up with the straight edge to make sure that I'm on line when I'm laying down my panels on center. And I guess realistically you could just measure from the middle of these two ridges, but there's so many uncertainties with the angles on these vans that I just do it from the damn sides to make sure. But it looks like it is dead center with the middle of this top ridge here. So let's bring some panels up and kind of see where we're going to be, and we'll mark out where those will kind of lay. Now I'm just lining up those brackets with the middle of the top of the van so I can get that laid flat, and then this one will lay on top of this. But first I just want to get it marked out where it's going to be, just so I can make sure when I lay it back down, once I get the butyl tape on, I can see where that thing's going to lie flat and where I need to lie that butyl tape. And again, in comparison to where the brackets are down underneath here, I'm making sure that they're not running into any space where the wire's going to come down. It should all be in these open areas. And based on some measurements that I took, and just on a visual check, I can tell right here that's going to fall about right here. So a visual check there, looks like everything will fall in place. And the furthest one right here, which is the front of the sideways panel, it's going to be close, but it should fall right on the outside of this wood here, so it should be fine. So there you go, just drew around with a dry erase on these back two. I'll go mark those up there, make sure I get the horizontal panel lined up in the middle along with these, and then I'll mark those off as well. Okay, so I just marked the center of this, matched it up with the center of the van, drew out all of where this needs to fall, and now we'll get the butyl tape on. Alright, so since I marked all these and where the drill holes are, I'm going to pre-drill it with something just a little bit smaller than the screw that it came with, just so I can get it started in there and so it doesn't pull away all the butyl tape. When I start putting them in there, I want to be able to poke through the butyl tape into these pre-drilled holes, and then I'll have a better start point. Okay, so now I got all the holes pre-drilled, and I just blew away all the metal chips and any debris that would have been underneath the butyl tape. So now we will go ahead and start laying down our butyl in the back. Um, it does lie pretty close to the top of the van when it lies flat, so I'm going to lay a couple layers of butyl tape on this one just to give it a little bit of a rise. Now I'm just coming in underneath. I just have this little mini screwdriver, and I'm poking up through the hole, up through the butyl tape on top, just to get that reference point. And that way I'll be able to see where that hole actually is when I lay down the brackets. Alright, so I got the first panel laid up here. Once you stick it on with the butyl, it does not want to come up, so make sure you do all your plugging in beforehand and grabbing your plugs from underneath, because the profile is very low, it barely fits out of there, so you're going to want to think ahead on that. Also, what you want to do is, before you hook everything up top, is cap off your two cables coming into the vehicle, because these will be live as soon as you plug them into the solar panels. So you obviously don't want these to short out or be hanging out, zap you or anything like that. So cap those off. When we're ready to hook this up to the charge controller, I'll actually be covering up the solar panels up top with cardboard for a reasonable amount of time to let those discharge, and then I can hook all that up. I also put another piece of butyl over the top of this bracket, so when the other panel lays on there, that bracket lays on there, there's a cushion there in between the two, just as an added padding, and then as well as having just a little more water barrier. Now that we have the first panel installed, I kind of wanted to go over how you're going to connect all the panels, since you will need access to all the cords before you kind of put everything on, because it will be difficult to reach the cords and connect them while they're underneath everything, and everything's tied down with the butyl tape. So this is how we wire everything. It's going to be in series. The reason to do it in series is because it is more efficient to run and charge your batteries. It runs at a higher voltage, so you'll always have a minimum voltage even if your panels aren't running at peak efficiency, as in getting the most sunlight possible. You can run at a certain percentage of sunlight on them and attain the charging capabilities as long as you have an MPPT controller. So in this setup, you'll run at higher voltage but lower amps, so you'll still attain that 14.4 volts through your controller for these particular batteries, the lithium, you want a little bit higher voltage, so that's why I ran these in series. So you want to almost connect cyclically, where your negative from your first panel goes to the entry gland, but then your positive connects to the negative on the rear panel. Your positive goes into the negative on that second vertical panel, and then your positive runs from that second vertical panel back into the entry gland. So I got my positive out here. Gotta plug in my negative that goes into the van from here. Okay, I got the second one up here, mostly in place. It seems to be lining up, so I'm gonna pull these. I already got that side stuck down. Okay. Everything looks to be lining up really well. So, start throwing some screws in. Alright. Definitely advise putting the lap sealant on next to your butyl tape, so when you press it down you get a good seal. I had to go back through and kind of mess around with the seal on those ones because I didn't do that, so I needed to use like a stick and kind of like get back up in there, but everything hopefully should be watertight. That butyl tape is holding really strong. So there it is, solar in. So to finish off with these screws from the solar panels, I just cut a bigger hole in the lap sealant bottle, and you just go up, kind of create a dollop.